seventh seal. Interesting that we have gone through 7 chapters of Revelation, and we still have not opened the book of Destiny. But tonight we break the 7th seal, and we see our first glimpse into the book with the appearance of the 7 angels with trumpets. Remember, the seals themselves are not part of the scroll. The only purpose that the seals served was to bind the scrolls or the book together. So the seal judgments that we've seen and that we'll see tonight are events that happened before the end time itself. The end times will not begin until the 7th seal is broken and the book is opened. That makes sense? So we are still the first part of tonight before the Great Tribulation. That's scary because some of the things we've just talked about in the past few weeks, when we look at what's leading up, those are some pretty scary things, aren't they? And they are the icing on the cake. That when the 7th seal is broken, we see 3 preparations for judgment. The first thing we see is just a shattering silence. All sound ceases everywhere. Second thing we see are the instruments of judgment. The third thing is the signs of the coming judgments upon the earth. Now notice I didn't say the judgments on the earth, the signs of the judgments. So in verse 1 of Revelation chapter 8, look at what it says. And when he had opened the 7th seal, there was silence in heaven for about the space of half an hour. Now, here's the shattering silence. A young man walked up to his preacher one time and said, Pastor, did you know that there won't be any women in heaven? And the preacher looked at him and said he'd never heard anything such as that before, and asked if he had any scripture to back it up. The young man said, yeah, the Bible says there's going to be silence in heaven for the space of half an hour. If there were any women there couldn't be any silence for that long. Once the 7th seal's open, there is silence. Have you ever been out someplace where there was just absolutely no sound whatsoever? But even then, there was some noise from someplace, wasn't there? Imagine a time when there is no sound whatsoever. This was the silence of awe and reverence before God. So when the 7th seal's open, absolutely nothing happens. And Christ stands there in absolute stone silence. Then we get to verses 2 through 4. Read along with me. And I saw the 7 angels which stood before God, and to them were given 7 trumpets. And another angel came and stood at the altar, having a golden censer, and there was given unto him much incense, that he should offer it with the prayers of all saints upon the golden altar which was before the throne. And the smoke of the incense, which came with the prayers of the saints, ascended up before God out of the angel's hand. That's a neat picture. So the first thing we see are the 7 angels with 7 trumpets. I love this part because I'm a trumpet player. And I can just see them standing there with those trumpets poised. But these aren't trumpets like we see today. These are what they call the herald trumpets. The long trumpets like you see from medieval times. And think about this scene. Picture the heavenly host surrounding the throne of God. Just completely surrounded. Think about all the spectacular scenes, the horror and the suffering that these saints have witnessed, that this host has witnessed over the course of history. Picture the breaking of that 7th seal and the stone silence for 30 minutes. And then, bursting onto the scene are 7 mighty angels, and they take their place before the throne of God. And just picture them standing there, tall and broad, and they possess, or their power is clearly seen in their very persons. Have you ever stood before somebody that was so powerful that they just radiated power? That's nothing compared to what these angels are going to do. So, what significance do these trumpets have? William Barclay gives us something to think about. And he gives 3 reasons for the blowing of the trumpet. First, it can sound the alarm. It can waken people from sleep. It can warn of danger. And God is always sounding his warnings. How many times in the Old and New Testament has God warned mankind about what's to come? His warnings don't fall deaf on the ears of most men. Secondly, it can be a fanfare that announces the arrival of royalty. If you've watched any movies, especially medieval movies, when the king's coming, what do you hear? The trumpets sound to announce the arrival of the king. These trumpets, though, aren't announcing an earthly king. They announce the king of eternity. The third thing that trumpets do is they sound the summons for battle. And God is always summoning his people to take sides in the battle between truth and falsehood. And to become soldiers, not of an earthly king, but of the King of Kings. The second instrument of the judgment is the prayers of the saints. Prayer of the saints and believers. Notice that these are the prayers of all the saints. Not just a hand-picked few. All of them. Some were in heaven, some were still on the earth. We have already seen in chapter 7 how millions would be killed and persecuted for their beliefs, for their stand for Christ. The point is that the day's coming, and it is coming soon, I'm afraid, when God is going to answer. Don't let me rephrase. I'm not afraid. I'm looking forward to it. But the day is coming when God is going to answer the prayers of his people. And anybody who has rebelled against Jesus is going to be judged. All his followers who suffered for so much at the hands of a godless society are going to have their prayers heard and answered swiftly and surely. Then we get to verse 5. And the angel took the censer and filled it with the fire of the altar and cast it into the earth. And there were voices and thunderings and lightnings and an earthquake. So now we see the signs of the coming judgment. The angel takes fire from the altar and he mixes it with the prayers of the suffering saints, and they are mixed together to cast upon the earth. The justice of God is going to strike out in wrath against the ungodly and against all the evil of the earth. And when this fire and prayer hits the earth, the millions and millions and millions still on the earth are going to know without a doubt that something terrible is about to happen. There are going to be violent earthquakes, thunderstorms, and the great tribulation is now being launched. We've finally reached that point where God said, enough is enough. You've had your way for as long as you wanted it. Now it's my turn. And my judgment is final. Then we get to verse 6 and 7. And the 7 angels, which had the 7 trumpets, prepared themselves to sound. The first angel sounded, and there followed hail and fire mingled with blood, and they were cast upon the earth, and the third part of trees was burned up, and all green grass was burned. That's going to be an ugly sight. Aren't you glad you're not going to be here to see it? The silence is over. The prayers of the saints have been heard. And the plagues that we see here, these are not symbolic plagues. There is nothing symbolic about this. These are literal plagues. If people think COVID-19 is bad, wait till we get to this point. The first trumpet sounds, and it begins to hail. And mixed in with the hail is fire. Now, hail is what? Water. Frozen water. How often have you seen fire and hail together? And we're reminded of one of the plagues brought upon the Egyptians in Exodus 9. 1/3 of the earth, a full third, is going to be destroyed. The crops and food supply for both man and animal are going to be destroyed. The agricultural cycle of seed formation is going to be interrupted, and it's going to affect the ability of the plants to grow and the ability to plant again. There's going to be a shortage of food. Dry desert lands are going to take the place of lush green meadows. And the result is just from the destruction of the trees. 1/3 of all vegetation is destroyed. You just think, just in our area here, if 1/3 of the vegetation is destroyed, what effect would that have on our society just here? Think about worldwide. Then we get to verses 8 and 9, and the second angel. It says, "And the second angel sounded, and as it were a great mountain burning with fire was cast into the sea, and a third part of the sea became blood. And the third part of the creatures which were in the sea and had life died, and the third part of the ships were destroyed." It's getting worse, isn't it? The second trumpet sounds. And note the exact language used here. John doesn't say a burning mountain, but a great mass, like a burning mountain. That's the best that he can do. That's as close as he can come to describing what he's seeing. But saying something is like something does not mean that that is exactly what it is. I used to get on my students all the time. I'd say, "What does this mean?" "Well, it's like." I said, "No, it's not like anything. It is unique to itself. This is like a burning mountain, but it's not a burning mountain." This literal mass falls into the literal sea, and the sea occupies most of the earth's surface. 80% of the earth is water. So you figure you take 1/3 of that 80%, it's just destroyed. 1/3 becomes literal blood. And 1/3 of all the literal living creatures in the literal sea die a literal death. There's nothing symbolic here. No symbols used at all. Fully 1/3 of the nation's ships are going to be destroyed. How many ships do we have in the United States Navy? I don't even know. But imagine if 1/3 of those are destroyed. What does that do to our defense? Considerably. Now, we don't know what this mass is that John's referring to here, but it really doesn't matter. John doesn't tell us what it is, and the believers won't be on earth to find out. They won't have to worry about it anymore. And that's why we have an awesome responsibility. A responsibility to tell others about the saving knowledge we have, so they don't have to go through this tribulation. See, here's something that weighs on me a lot. If I have the opportunity to share Christ with somebody and I don't do it, and the end times come while I'm still on this earth, or it comes while I'm during my lifetime, who is responsible for all the people that I did not share with? It'll never come again. And you may be subjecting and sentencing someone to an eternity, or at least to the tribulation, by not sharing your faith. That's an awesome responsibility. We can't keep the judgment from coming on earth, but we can get the word out, and we can reduce the population that's going to be left on earth, so that the fewer people will go through that terrible time. And by the way, think about this. In the creation, the sea and the land were separated on the same day. on the same day that the plants were created. And these are the first two things of creation to be affected. Look at verses 10 and 11. And the third angel sounded, and there fell a great star from heaven, burning as it were a lamp, and it fell upon the third part of the rivers, and upon the fountains of waters. And the name of the star is called Wormwood. And the third part of the waters became wormwood, and many men died of the waters, because they were made bitter. You know, you can last a long, long time without food. And by a long time, I'm talking several weeks. How long can you last without water? Not long. Because your body dehydrates, and it messes up every balance within your body. The third trumpet sounds as a flaming star falls to the waters of earth, and it pollutes 1/3 of the remaining waters. Remember, a third of them have already been destroyed. A third of what's left. Wormwood is a term used throughout the Bible to represent, get this, the idolatry of Israel. It's mentioned in Deuteronomy 28:19. It's used to represent calamity and sorrow in Jeremiah and Lamentations. And it's used to represent false judgment in Amos. The star is called wormwood. And this is going to be a literal star, which is a meteor containing poison that contaminates 1/3 of the earth's fresh water supply. And the star's name suggests that it is a judgment by God upon man for idolatry and injustice. Calamity and sorrow are the natural byproducts that are going to come because of this judgment. And then we get to verse 12. And the fourth angel sounded, and the third part of the sun was smitten, and the third part of the moon, and the third part of the stars, so that this third part of them was darkened, and the day shone not for a third part of it, and the night likewise. So we've seen a third of the vegetation destroyed, a third of the sea destroyed. We've seen a third of the creatures and the ships, a third of the fresh water, and now a third of the light is destroyed. And the sun is not going to be seen for 1/3 of the day. A full third. Now, we're not talking just the daylight hours. Right now, it's daylight for about 14 hours. So a third of that would be 4 2/3 hours. But we're talking a third of a 24-hour period, 8 hours. So that means we're going to have only 4 hours. Don, you do a lot of planning. How much stuff could grow with 4 hours of daylight? Not much. The intensity of light is going to be 1/3 of what it usually is. And that's going to affect the laws of nature. And it'll affect the germination time for plants. It's going to affect their growth time and their harvest time. But it's not going to stop it. Now, how do I know that? Look at Genesis 8:22. While the earth remaineth, seed time and harvest, and cold and heat, and summer and winter, and day and night shall not cease. That tells us very clearly that it's going to be affected, but it's not going to completely stop it. There is going to be food, but it's going to be a very limited food supply. And then we get to verse 13 of Revelation 8. And I beheld and heard an angel flying through the midst of heaven, saying with a loud voice, Woe, woe, woe to the inhabitants of the earth, by reason of the other voices of the trumpet of the 3 angels, which are yet to sound. Those 3 have sounded pretty bad, haven't they? There's still 3 to go. After the 4th trumpet sounded, we see this announcement of woe and judgment coming on the earth. The last 3 trumpets are separated from the first 4. And these are called the woe trumpets. Not W-H-O-A, woe, but W-O-E, W-O-E, woe. You're not trying to stop a horse. You're talking about agony and despair. The first 4 trumpets dealt with the elements of the earth. The last three deal with the ungodly and the evil on the earth. Think of this. The first four trumpet judgments, if they were that thorough in purging the earth, which really is done nothing against God, what do you imagine is going to happen to the people that have actually rebelled and turned their back on it? And the eagle says, woe to you who are left on the earth, because you are about to experience the blowing of the last three trumpets, which is even worse than the first one. Then we get to Revelation chapter 9, verse 1. And it's all breaking news here. And the fifth angel sounded, and I saw a star fall from heaven unto the earth, and to him was given the key of the bottomless pit. A star falls from heaven. This star is not a literal star. This star is a person. This time, the word star is symbolic, and it represents someone with a very high position. Who is he? Well, we first know that he is fallen. That's past tense. It didn't say he fell. It says he is fallen. It means that he was already fallen when God gave him the key to the bottomless pit. Who's got the key to the bottomless pit? Satan himself. Christ said that he saw Satan fall from heaven in Luke 10:18. So Scripture gives us a glimpse into the fall of Satan. He apparently was the highest archangel created by God. But when Satan began to look at himself and choose to go his own way, God cast Satan out of heaven. And he gave the key to Satan to the bottomless pit, the abyss, a place where Scripture says the demons and the devils dwell. So this fallen star, by all indications, appears to be Satan. Presently, Jesus Christ holds the keys to this pit. Remember when he was crucified, in the time that he was dead, we are told that he went there. He descended and he came back. But in the Great Tribulation, Jesus hands these keys to Satan, and he allows Satan to afflict the earth with his demons. Verse 2 tells us, and he opened the bottomless pit, and there arose a smoke out of the pit, as the smoke of a great furnace, and the sun and the air were darkened by reason of the smoke of the pit. So the pit's open, smoke boils out, darkens the earth, and the darkness of the underworld uses that cover to attack the ungodly. And they'll have the breath of life suffocated out of them by trouble after trouble after trouble. They're going to experience horrors and nightmares rising out of the bottomless pit that they never imagined. See, I told you it was going to get worse, didn't I? But now we get to verses 3 through 6. And there came out of the smoke locusts upon the earth, and unto them was given power, as scorpions of the earth have power. And it was commanded them that they should not hurt the grass of the earth, neither any green thing, neither any tree, but only those men who have not the seal of God in their foreheads. And to them it was given that they should not kill them, but they should be tormented 5 months. And their torment was as the torment of a scorpion when he striketh a man. And in those days shall men seek death, and shall not find it, and shall desire to die, and death shall flee from them. You ever been stung by a scorpion? I have. One of the places we lived, we had scorpions all over the place. These aren't the big, like you see in the science fiction movies. These are things about the size of maybe your thumb. But I'm going to tell you what, when they flip that tail up and they hit you with that stinger, you think you are on fire. I have never had anything burn so bad in my life without being on fire. The Antichrist in these verses is alive and well. Governments are insisting that people bow to them as the great provider and protector. Boy, does that sound familiar? What's going on in our country right now? We will take care of you. Oh, yeah. And this is happening today. 1/3 of the plants, the sea, the fresh water, and the light have been destroyed. And now we hear the fifth trumpet sound. And the plague it brings is demonic, like locust plague on the ungodly and the evil of the earth. You seen the stories coming out of India? They are having a locust invasion in India. I mean, I was watching video of it. The skies are darkened. They're almost looks like nighttime as these things fly across. They are so thick and they're huge. But it's nothing compared to this. These are some ugly grasshoppers. They will have the power of scorpions. And here's the thing. The scorpion stings with its tail. And the sting doesn't kill. But it causes intense, agonizing pain. And these locusts aren't going to damage nature. They are only there to afflict those who do not have the seal of God on their foreheads. They're not going to kill people. They're only going to torture them for 5 minutes. One sting was enough for me, and it lasted about 2 days. I can't imagine doing this for 5 minutes. The people are going to be in such agony that they're going to beg to die. And they're not going to be able to. They're going to have to endure it the full 5 months. How horrible could that be? And then we get to verse 17. And the shapes of the locust were like unto horses prepared unto battle. And on their heads were as it were crowns like gold, and their faces were as the faces of men, and they had hair as the hair of women, and their teeth were as the teeth of lions. And they had breastplates, as it were breastplates of iron, and the sound of their wings was as the sound of chariots of many horses running to battle. And they had tails like unto scorpions, and there were stings in their tails, and their power was to hurt violence. I'm probably not going to sleep tonight. See, we're given 8 detailed descriptions of these monsters. That's exactly what they are. They are monsters. First, it tells us they're like horses. That could mean that they are larger than the average size locust, and they are prepared for battle. Then it tells us that they have heads that look like they're crowned with gold. They have the authority to afflict men. Third, they have faces of men, symbolizing the determination and intelligence. They have hair like women. In other words, they have beauty to seduce and ensnare, to help them seem innocent and harmless at first. Fourth or fifth, they have teeth like a lion. Devouring, fierce, ferocious, cruel teeth. I mean, a lion's teeth can rip you apart in an instant. They have breastplates like iron. And, folks, you're not going to be able to kill them. Nothing we have is going to work against them. They have wings that sound like chariots rushing into battle, and they sting like a scorpion. And in verse 11, it says, and they had a king over them, which is the angel of the bottomless pit, whose name in the Hebrew tongue is Abaddon, but in the Greek tongue hath his name Apollyon. So the angels For these locusts have a king. They have someone that controls them. And 4 things are said on this. First, that this person who controls the locust is an angel. A creature of enormous beauty and enormous strength. Second, he is an angel of the abyss, meaning he is not in the heavens with God. He is a fallen angel. Third, he's the king, the ruler over the abyss, and he rules over the power of darkness. Who does that describe? It describes Satan. And fourth, this angel has a Greek and a Hebrew name. The Hebrew name, Abaddon, literally translated means destruction. The Greek name, Apollyon, means destroyer. So who's the fallen angel? I tend to think that it's Satan. Some believe he's maybe one of his commanding angels. Regardless, he has incredible power. And that's where we're going to stop for tonight. But I want to end with this thought. The enemy of man is the spiritual force that lies behind this world. A force that the Bible calls Satan. And we can only deceive ourselves if we don't cast ourselves upon the power and the salvation and the promises of Jesus Christ. Jesus delivers us from the force of this evil person who leads us into evil and dooms us into death. Here's the good news. For us, for anybody that hears this, Jesus has already defeated Satan. And he did it in order to deliver us from the grip of Satan and from the power of sin and the power of death. Satan has no control over us other than that which we give him. The problem is we give him way too much power. I'm just going to say this, and we're going to have a word of prayer, and we're going to dismiss. But the most important thing that we can do is to tell the world. One person at a time. One video at a time. One service at a time. Standing in line at the grocery store. Wherever you might be. Tell the good news. Satan only is successful when we lay down on the job. When we don't do what we're commanded to do. You know, you heard me say this before, it's not the 10 suggestions, it's the 10 commandments. And God has commanded us to carry his message to a lost and dying world. And if we don't do it, that is something that we are going to have to answer for. We are going to sit there and we're going to see. Because we know, remember help me here, guys. The story of the man, the pauper that went to heaven, and the rich man that went to hell. Lazarus. And Lazarus looks down and he sees this rich man. And he said, just dip your finger in the water and touch it to my lips to give me some relief. We're going to see what's going on with these people. The Bible tells us that. Do you want to live with the fact that someone is going to look at you and say, why didn't you tell me about this? Why didn't you spare me from this? Now, if you share it and they turn you down, that's on them, not you. But if you don't share it, that's something we're going to have to answer. Let's have a word. Heavenly Father, as we look at this account, as we look at this timeline, what's going to be happening, Father, it just sends shudders of dread to think of what this earth and the people that are left are going to have to endure. Simply because they did not take that one step, make that one little decision, that life-changing decision to follow just convict us to reach out beyond these doors with everyone we meet and share your message to save as many as possible from what the Bible describes in chapter 9 of Revelation. Lord, I just thank you for those here tonight. Thank you for those listening. I pray that you would just continue to impress upon us the importance of the job you called us to do. Be with us now.